Hey, what is going on? My name is Kai. Today I'm going to be talking about how I produced a song using Fiverr musicians. Recently, I was traveling a lot for work, and I was on a plane and in airports a lot of the time, and I had my laptop with me and Logic on there, and I was messing around, and I was kind of making this funky disco-inspired track, and the MIDI instruments weren't cutting it, and so at a certain point, I was like, you know what? If this track is going to reach its full potential, I think I might need to commission some, saxophone line and a bass line and stuff like that. And so I turned to Fiverr. And if you don't know what Fiverr is, it's like a website where you can hire creative people for like gig work. And I had actually done this before in the past. I made this song called Low Pressure Afternoon, which I'll play for you a little bit. And I had commissioned a guy to make this saxophone line. I made the beat, and then I was like, I would love a saxophone playing over the top of this. And I'm going to put myself on the screen up here for a second while I'm talking about this. And so I had asked this guy on Fiverr to record some saxophone, and he sent over several saxophone solos, which I had spliced up into this lead line for the track, and it came out really well, and I was really proud of it and psyched with the quality. And so now, a few years later, I had this track going on, and I figured I could do something similar. I'm gonna make myself a little bigger again. Yeah, so I'll play a little bit of what I got here, and I'll talk about how this track came together in the first place. I had an idea to make some, like a funky disco something or other. I was kind of listening to a lot of, like, new disco, modern, funky music, and so I started programming some funky drums. I added this cymbal, ride cymbal thing on a drummer track because I thought it fleshed it out, and it's something that I like doing in Logic a lot. And then I got like a bass line going, it's MIDI bass. Which pretty much just repeats for the whole track, and sometimes it gets pared down. For the intro here, and then like a B section later. But for the most part, it's just this basic bass line that I had kind of clicked in, with piano roll tool. Nothing special. I got some chords going with these strings. Sorry, not the live strings yet. Spoiler. But these MIDI strings here. I stole some chords from Dua Lipa, Love Again, and then I put them in a different key, and I think I changed like a couple of the chords a little bit because I do not want to get sued by the full force of Ms. Lipa's legal team. Anyway, yeah, this is what the chords sound like. All right. And then I have two copies here where a few of the notes are just panned left and right. And then I have this ARP that's processed, I think, slightly differently or something. Or it's center channel. Yeah, so pretty basic MIDI strings. And then at this point, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do with the track. And I was like, screw it, I'm going to add a saxophone. And so I started clicking in the saxophone line, and it was kind of going pretty well. It just kind of flowed out of me. It's not the most inspired saxophone line in the world, and in fact, it is a little cheesy, but I feel like that kind of fits the vibe of the track. It's fun, it's easy listening, it's smooth jazzy a little bit, there's a little bit of Kenny G in here. Anyway, yeah, but it still is a little robotic. It's this computer saxophone line, and even though there's all like these various articulations you can do in Logic that I was trying to make it sound kind of as human as possible. It wasn't cutting it, and so for this track to feel professional or feel finished, I kind of felt like I needed to get some live instruments in here, and I knew I definitely wanted to do the bass, and I wanted to do the saxophone line, and then I also decided to commission some strings, and I ran into some trouble with these, or at least I didn't have kind of like the vision that I had for the other two layers, and we'll talk about that. Yes, let's hop it over to Fiverr now, and I will show you what I felt like was a pretty good method that worked for me for commissioning these layers. And so this is Fiverr. There's like a million different things you can do on here. Somebody could build you a website. Somebody could market your website. Somebody can translate your essay for you. Somebody could write your essay for you. But really, I've only ever used it for musician and like a little bit of voiceover, voice acting work for a couple things I was. But anyway, let's pop over to my orders tab here, and I'm going to walk you through this bass track. By the way, when you look at somebody's profile on Fiverr, they have like their price and a couple of various packages. And you can kind of pick the one that works best for you, or shoot them a message and see if they could put together a custom package, or like see if they are even interested in your project or feel like if it's a good fit. But anyway, this dude did a lot of like funk bass work, and so I was like, hell yeah. And he was pretty cheap, so I was like, even better. So I sent him this message. By the way, this is me on United Airlines in-flight Wi-Fi. I spent the extra $8 or $10 or something because I was like, screw it. I'm on like a 6-hour flight to DC, and anyway, I'm bored as hell, and I have this song burning a hole in my pocket, burning a hole on my hard drive or whatever. I'm feeling crazy. Let's spend some money. Anyway, so the altitude is crazy stuff to you. Even though the plane's only pressurized to like 8,000 feet. I know it's not. Anyway. So anyway, I was like, hey, Aiken. This dude's name is Aiken. I'm working on a funky disco-ish inspired track, and I would love if you could record some bass for me. I've uploaded several files, which will hopefully give you what you need to get started. And I asked him to take the MIDI bass line that I started with and kind of use it as a foundation. And then I wanted him to embellish and add whatever he felt his bass master senses said to add. And the goal is a feel good, funky, danceable track. I sent him the MIDI version as well as like a couple other exports. So I sent over the MIDI of the bass track. I sent over like a fully mixed version of the song. I sent over a fully mixed version minus the bass track, and I sent over just the bass track by itself, as well as this picture of like the piano roll of the bass. And I felt like with all that stuff, he'll probably be able to record what he needs and give me like something that's pretty in line with what I'm hoping for. Gave him the BPM key of D minor. I almost said D of key minor. He says thanks. A couple days later, I sent him the chords too. A couple days later, he sends me a couple versions. And these are mixed versions. Like he dropped his bass line in with the MP3 that I had sent over earlier, so I could kind of hear what it sounded like in context, and I thought it sounded great and that he was absolutely shredding. So I said, perfect. Send me clean bass stems, please. And he did. And I wrote him a great review, and I gave him a tip. And all in all, it cost me $68.30 with processing fees and everything. And yeah, we can talk about at the end if I thought it was worth it. In certain circumstances, I think it's absolutely worth it. But also, this is not something that I would do for every song. It was really fun to do for this song. I don't know if this song is going to go anywhere because I kind of don't feel like super strongly about it, but it was a really good learning experience anyway. Yeah, we'll kind of recap more about that later. But back over in Logic, we can look at how that bass sound came in. So this is kind of what the previous bass sounded like. Actually, let's start over here. Same bass loop here. He just kind of starts getting a little more crazy as the track progresses. So I'm going to show you the beginning here. It's just like infinitely better. It has much more groove. It has dynamics. It has just that intangible something that comes from a real human playing real music. So he sent over both of these bass layers, and I used them at like a couple different points. And the difference between them is this first one, pretty standard bass sound, I guess. And then this second one is much more like slap bass. It has a sharper, higher frequency edge to it. And so I felt like I was glad to have both because I used them at different points in the song. And then sometimes just like one performance on one or the other would be slightly better. And so that's kind of what's going on down here is I'm switching between various pieces of the performance because I felt like he was nailing it on one layer or on one take versus the other. And so you'll actually hear here that like the bass, the tonality changes, the timbre of the bass, which is a little iffy. Like it would be cool if I had a great take, or like the best take for each version, or each timbre, I guess. But in the final version of the track, you don't really hear this at all. Maybe if you have really nice headphones and speakers that are nicer than mine, you would, but I can't really hear it when it switches back and forth. when I'm just kind of taking in the track as a whole. And then he also sent me, there's a couple other pieces. This middle part of the song here is kind of like a bridge right here. And so I used these pieces of the bass to kind of pan this way right and then pan this one way left. Just to kind of add a little bit of interest off to the sides, ear candy or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, and then so basically this exact same process that I did on, up here, on Fiverr, I did it again for the saxophone. I found a guy that I liked who had a reasonable price and who seemed like a good saxophone player, and I asked him to kind of replicate this MIDI saxophone line, and he definitely did that. I'll show you kind of what we got going on here. So here's the MIDI sax. And again, it's just like this dude took what I wrote. He performed exactly what I wrote, but it's on a real instrument with a player who's pretty good. Something that I did go in here, I don't really know how a saxophone tuning works, but I saw that some of these notes in here, one in particular, it might have been this one, one of these, like the highest note was flat. And just because I was listening to this perfect MIDI version for so long, this flat-ish note was really bugging me. So I went here into Logic Flex Pitch Correction, and I'm just saying I can't remember if it was this note actually, but I just like fine-tuned it up to be like perfectly, or maybe not super perfectly, but like much closer to the note pitch that it's supposed to be than the recorded version. But that's basically all the editing that I did to this. I have a couple versions here just because I have different effects and they're mixed slightly differently for kind of the quieter parts of the song versus the quote unquote like drop or a chorus or whatever section. But yeah, I pretty much didn't touch the bass or the saxophone at all other than like kind of nestling them into the overall mix. I think the musicians did a great job. There's a little bit of EQ on here. This frequency range seemed a little bit harsh to me, so I brought it down ever so slightly. The bass has some sidechain on it just to get it really locked in. I don't know if this is like a usual tactic or not, but I felt like I just added the extra glue to the track and made it sound really cohesive. So yeah, I put sidechain on an already funky bass. I think I'm going to talk about strings next, but I also have a notes document and I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything that I want to tell you, so stand by. Yep, okay, let's talk about strings. Just to recap, give you a refresher, here's what my strings sound like. Pretty standard MIDI strings. Little bit quieter versions depending on what part of the track that they're in. And I think this is just like changing velocity. Actually, I don't think I changed the velocity that much. I think I just like high cut them a little bit. And maybe added more of my bus reverb effects. Stuff like that. Gave them a little bit more space. But that's what the MIDI strings sound like. And then this is where I ran into trouble. I don't think I spent enough money. I spent around $60-ish on the strings again too. I spent maybe $60 to $70 on each of these instruments to get a full orchestra sounding string section, or even just violin section, because I think these are just, these MIDI samples are several violins playing at the same time. I think I needed to commission a musician who was familiar with kind of disco funk string stuff and give them a lot of money so they could record several layers and multiple takes and stuff so that I could build out this section. And that sort of happened, but also I commissioned this woman who I think is a classically trained, like classical orchestral string player, and it just wasn't the exact vibe that I was hoping for, and it wasn't to the exact like I wasn't gonna have these live strings replace my MIDI strings, was kind of what I realized, at least without spending a lot more money. However, I chose to incorporate them in still. So this is what the live string sound like. And as you can see, I got sent over like many takes, many layers. And actually what happened in here is I think she just recorded like a 4-measure section and then just looped it, which is totally fine because I did not pay her enough to record this many layers. And it wasn't even in her wheelhouse anyway, I think, which is totally my bad. But like there are some things here, like I think these are the string stabs. Like I wanted her to replicate like this kind of thing. Sorry, this kind of thing. The pew! That you can hear like here. And that was one of the sounds that she just didn't that well. For example, this. She tried. There's some arpeggios that are pretty good. But like those, they weren't what I wanted. You know what I meant? Or you know what I mean? So I chose not to include them. But a lot of this other string stuff that she sent over was pretty lush and like had a couple extra articulations and notes and melodies in here that I didn't write myself and I thought were actually pretty cool. So I'll play you some of that now. Sorry. Play you some of that now. And there's like a totally different vibe to this than this, right? Like this sounds flat, but it does sound full-ish. But when you stack them together, it creates just such this full sound. But it is maybe just my personal taste. I found that the live strings still weren't cutting it for like this part of the track. Like this main, that section. So I chose to keep, this is just MIDI. And you can't hear this as much. I've kept the volume pretty low at some parts here. And actually it looks like for the drop section, I've only kept MIDI strings, but I bring in these, the live strings again during the break here, just to add more interest. And they come back for the drop, the second drop. But I just had a lot of struggles weaving these strings, these live strings into the song in a way that I thought like fit the vibe. They sounded more like a score for a movie or like a classical music piece than they did a disco piece. And so, yeah, I just think I didn't approach the strings in the right way, and I didn't hire the right musician to get the exact right sound. And frankly, I think I didn't spend enough money. But not a loss. I think they do add to the track, just not nearly as much as the live bass or the live sax do. And again, I want to stress it's not the fault of the musician. I think she absolutely did her best with what I gave her and what I asked her to do for like $60. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of like a little trade-off that you get. And something I think that could be like that you might specifically want to focus on if you're hiring Fiverr musicians is like, what do I need from these people? And how can I give them the best possible reference and like give them the best project for them? Like you want to hire the right musician for your project so that you can get good stuff, but also so that you're not giving someone a task that they're just not suited for, right? Like you wouldn't give like a classical pianist a jazz piece necessarily, right? Like they've trained in different things. And while they could probably do like a passable job at it, I just didn't set them or myself up for success. So I think that's kind of what happened with the strings here, and is a good lesson that I learned. And so in a second, I want to play the MIDI version for you and the orchestrated version for you with live instruments so that you can compare both if you want to, and hear them back to back. Or you can skip them if you don't give a shit. But yeah, I just want to close out my talking section by saying that I think that for the right track, like if you're getting close to finishing a track and you feel like you have a solid idea and a vision and you're just looking for something to take it up to the next level and make it sound professional, and you're like a bedroom producer and you don't have like session musicians at your studio or whatever, I think that this is an insane way to get something that sounds really professional going for not that much money and without having to like learn the bass yourself. I think it actually is like an amazing tool for that and something that I'm going to be returning to for sure. I wouldn't be doing this for every track that I was working on unless I was like making an album or something. And I don't think that I would even do that until I had like several tracks together that I was like, these could use live musicians. Like I would go about it very intentionally because I think I could see myself just burning cash trying to get, cool bass lines and lead lines and vocals and stuff like that without like a lot of like foresight. I think it would just be a waste of time and money, and you might not end up with that much cool stuff. I definitely see myself using this in the future. Some of the things that I am interested in are working with a vocalist. I would love to work with some sort of vocalist because I'm not that great at singing, but I really like working with vocals. I made like some bootleg remixes in the past where I found an isolated vocal online, and now you can even like get isolated vocals out of like a WAV file with AI, and you can make your own remixes. But pulling a vocal out of like a pop song and then making your own track around it is super fun, and I feel like just having your own vocal is the next version of that I want to do. That's basically my experience working with Fiverr musicians. I think it's a very positive thing, and instead of buying like some random plugin that you never use that is not going to soup up your track in any meaningful way, or like another synth or something, maybe try putting that money towards like boarding some really good session musicians on Fiverr, because I think they might level up your track in a way you didn't expect. They might not save your track. Like I don't think they're a crutch, and they're not going to like rescue you from no musical ideas at all. But if you have a vision and you have a goal, Fiverr musicians can help get you there. I am going to play this track here with just the MIDI version, and then the quote unquote like final version with the live instruments mixed in back to back. I hope you enjoy, or you find that comparison useful. My name is Kai. Keep making music. Peace. That's the wrong version. I apologize. Here we go. Let me double check all my layers. Unmute the bass. All right, peace for real. I'm sorry, I messed it up again. Gotta mute the live strings. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm having too much fun. All right. Okay, MIDI sax, MIDI strings, MIDI bass. Mute these basses. Live strings are muted. Live sax is muted. I think we're set. Here you go. Third time's the charm. See you later. Back again. Even in that version, I forgot to turn off a couple things, but I caught them before they happened. Anyway, we're going to swap over now to the fully, not fully, but partially orchestrated version. Let me make sure the bass is muted here. Bass tail, MIDI bass. That looks good. And here you go. Peace yet again. All right, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you listening to my music, listening to what I have to say. Hopefully you learned something. Leave anything that you want to learn about in the comments down below. If you have any thoughts, if you like the music, if you didn't like the music, if you thought it was cheesy as hell, let me know. Thanks for hanging around. I'll see you later. Goodbye.